Hello again and welcome to more online class videos. I'll be your host for this awesome video on multimodal literacy narratives. First of all, I wanted to show you where you could find the guidelines for the multimodal literacy narrative. Under Learning Modules, Module 1, it should be with the other assignment sheets right here, Multimodal Literacy Narrative Guidelines. Open that. It has a lot of information that'll probably help you if you were to choose to do a multimodal literacy narrative. Remember, you don't have to do a multimodal literacy narrative. That's up to you. It's just an option. If you want to do a straightforward written paper, that's perfectly fine. But if you wanted to change it up and do something, a little bit more creative, that's perfectly fine with me. If you're a little bit confused on what multimodality is, it's really just a fancy word for an object or a text with multiple modes of sort of communication, right? So it has maybe text and speech, or images and speech, or images and text, something like that. So, comics, music videos, paintings, even in some ways. But anything that sort of involves different modes of communication would be multimodal. I'm pretty open to what kind of multimodal projects, that you guys can do. If you're a little bit hesitant about whether or not it would be a good idea to create a certain kind of multimodal literacy narrative, come see me and I can kind of, help you out with that decision-making process, etc., etc. But really, before you decide to embark on your multimodal literacy narrative journey, it's probably a good idea to at least talk to me, email back and forth a little bit, so I can help you out in that process. Because multimodal literacy narratives can really take lots of different forms. One person might do a PowerPoint, one person might do interpretive dance. You should do interpretive dance, by the way, that would be very awesome. One person might do a music video, one person might do a comic, right? And sort of the requirements or guidelines or, pitfalls or the tips that I can offer each multimodal narrative, literacy narrative, is going to be different depending on what kind of project you're deciding to tackle. So come see me, tell me what kind of project you want to work on, and I can definitely help you out in that process. But these guidelines give you 4 steps to sort of help you get started on your multimodal literacy narrative if you choose to do such a literacy narrative. So like usual, choose a literacy event that you've personally experienced. Again, literacy in the broad sense, not just learning to read or write, but learning any sort of language or way of communicating, right? Like the regular written narrative, make sure you limit it to one type of literacy. Keep it narrow. The broader that you get, the more trouble that you have. So, for example, other times I've taught this course, students have tried to cover multiple years of their life or something like that, and that's really, the scope of that's way too big for a small project like this. So really focus in on one event. Don't try and broaden out. Again, literacy can be defined somewhat broadly, so you don't have to talk about just learning how to read or write. It's really about your experiences acquiring a certain kind of knowledge, right? Like, tell me about that experience in some way, shape, or form. Some questions to consider to help you, also brainstorm your topic, right? Those should help you if you're having trouble thinking of, what event or what literacy event you want to talk about. The second step would be to figure out what kind of mode you want your literacy narrative to be in, right? So that can be a poem, a song. I already gave you lots of different examples, but this might be something that you already do. So if you're the kind of person that already paints or already dances or already does comics, right, you may want to Utilize that mode in your literacy narrative, right? Don't. So, on the flip side of that, if you're the kind of person that has never, ever, ever done songwriting or music recording before, this may be a bad time to delve into that, right? So, you may not want to pick a mode that you've never worked in before. But if you're, like I said before, a painter, a poet, a songwriter, a performer in some way, shape or form, you may want to sort of harness that or utilize that mode you already know how to work in your multimodal literacy narrative. After you've chosen your mode of expression and kind of created whatever project that you've created, you have to figure out a way to get it to me. And there's different things that you can do with this, right? So depending on what you're working in, it may take a different avenue to get the project to me. One thing though, so if you're doing something physical, like a painting or like a sculpture or something crazy like that, you don't have to actually like physically get me the painting or the sculpture. Like it would be cool if you could somehow, like I would love to hang your painting on my wall or place your sculpture upon one of my bookshelves. Like that would be awesome. Like, be a nice little conversation piece. People would walk into my room and be like, hey, what the hell is that? I'm like, oh, one of my students made that for me. Isn't that awesome? But that's neither here nor there. If you're out of town and actually, and made like a painting or a sculpture or some physical object that can't be easily transferred to some digital form, you could always like make a video or take some pictures of it and send me those, that would count as well. So there's different ways of getting me your project, and the ways of getting me your project will probably vary depending on what your project is. So you can always talk to me, and together we can figure out how best to deliver your project. The final step is a 2-page written reflection where you kind of just describe to me what your project is, why you chose to work in this different mode, any sort of maybe problems or like any interesting things that maybe came up while you were working that you either didn't anticipate or that really made you look at the project in a different way. But really the reflection can be lots of different things, it doesn't have to be limited to one sort of topic. You can talk about, again, some of the troubles that you had, why you chose the mode you worked in, why you thought the mode you worked in worked particularly well for your project. So, for example, if your literacy narrative is about learning music and you made your multimodal literacy narrative into something music-based, like those two things fit, nicely together. So you may want to talk a little bit about how you wanted to sort of use the literacy you gained. I'll have to think about a way to put this. Sort of, if you're talking about gaining a certain literacy, you can use that literacy or use that knowledge to kind of create the multimodal project, right? So if you want to talk about learning to paint in your literacy narrative, it would be cool if you made your multimodal literacy narrative like as a painting, right? But those are just a few ideas for you. But in your reflection, again, just tell me why you did what you did, problems you had, stuff like that. Also, if you did something like interpretive dance, like I can't generally watch that dance and maybe get it. Like interpretive dance is pretty abstract. So if your project is abstract and doesn't lend itself to an obvious reading, in your reflection you may want to say, oh, I did this move for this reason or something like that. Like this is what you're supposed to get from viewing my project. I think I've covered the basics of the multimodal literacy narrative, but remember, make sure you get with me and we can talk more about, your literacy narrative and how to transfer it to a multimodal form. Get with me through email or on Skype or through whatever means you feel would work best, and we can definitely talk about that. Well, have fun.